Hey everybody, welcome to the channel of Lazy Brown Production with your boy D Wesley, and I'm here to go ahead and give you my excitement. Oh my goodness. So today I'm reviewing the Dakota incident with Milestone Universe. It's pretty much DC's way or attempt to incorporate the Milestone characters into the DC universe and to make sure they are actually a part of the actual history of DC. And I have to say, it was awesome. Like, I can't explain it, but I have to say, it just fit. It's just whoever was in charge of the writing. I don't look at writers too much just because I rather sit down and just enjoy the story versus get caught up in who wrote it and everything like that. I probably go back and look at the writer, but whoever wrote it, whoever on top of this, they did their thing. The art was good. The writing was good. I'm very happy. A couple of nitpicks here and there, but overall, I'm excited. Honestly, I bought it online through my Kindle because I wanted to automatically go straight to my Kindle. I wanted to read it straight away. But honestly, if I have to say, I'll probably go out and buy the actual comic book because I'm a believer if you really love a story, get the physical copy because if something happens to Kindle or whatever happens, at least you have a physical copy. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, so pretty much the story starts off where we see that in the Milestone universe or in the Milestone timeline where it's just the Milestone characters, we see that Rocket has her son. He looks pretty, I'm not gonna lie, he looks cool. I don't know what. He's off fighting, I think his name was Slash, I can't remember. Fans of Static Shock will remember the character. He was the guy that was purple hair. He had the blades and everything like that. But we see that that guy was fighting Rocket's son. And when he was fighting Rocket's son, we see that they were going through a big battle. You see that he has some of his mother's abilities. Looks like a little bit more, but I don't know. But it looked like they were duking it out. He managed to overcome it while talking to Virgil. Virgil was saying that, hey, you did a good job. Hey, I gotta go talk with the missus and be with the family because apparently I'm gonna get a verbal beating if I don't or whatever. So while that happened, we see that there's a time distortion that was happening. With the time distortion, we see that he gets plunged into the DC universe because apparently, I guess the Milestone universe was being wiped out. At least that's what I was getting. I believe they did that before in the first Milestone integration of DC Comics. But in my opinion, this one's a lot more smoother because it wasn't like this big galactic thing. It was pretty chill, honestly. So they go ahead and they place him into the DC universe, and that's where we get a background of what really happened. We see that Dakota is just one big giant state, of course. At least that's why I believe. With Dakota being there, we see that Edwin Alva is pretty much the guy who led the state into this great upheaval or into this great prosperous era where crime is at an all-time low. Everybody's happy. You know, it's not your Metropolis, it's not your Gotham, it's its own thing. And I love that because that kind of already sets it up to be them to stand alone. They are there, but they got their own thing going on. But there is a downside to this almost utopia-like presence, and that is this one place where apparently gang violence is on a uprise. So we see that Edwin is talking with the mayor of Dakota, trying to figure out a way to stop the gang violence. And with him, he has his right-hand man, Curtis Metcalf. And so their solution to stopping it is pretty much this gas, or to pretty much squash the big giant gangs from fighting amongst each other. So when they go to stop the fight, here goes the story. The gas is not lethal. The gas proves to be more than what it is. It starts taking everybody who's in that vicinity and it turns them into metahumans. And when that happens, we find out that, well, Edwin decides to go ahead and blame Curtis for this whole situation, as the story always goes with that. On the downside to that is we also see during the comic that Curtis was already mad at Edwin because he wanted equal partnership to further the goal. And Edwin was just like, I don't need a partner in this situation. I need a person who's a yes man, pretty much. I need someone who's just going to do it. And that's when everything started to collapse and we see the trajectory of everything else. In doing so, we also see the rise in the history, a brief history and a summary of how Rocket, she met Icon, on how Static, he became pretty much the spark, the hope of it all, how he became the Metahuman. We also see the crime syndicate, how they rose and they fought, and it was a nice little tidbit history. So then in the comic, we see that Edwin had left a note for Hardware to come meet up with him. So Hardware goes over there, most likely ready to fight or ready to walk into a trap. And that's when we see that Edwin has been deceased. He's no more. The powers that be had laid him to waste. From there, we learned that Hardware, who had already been investigating Edwin, Alva, and all his nefarious doings, and because as I said earlier in the story, they all pretty much been fighting Edwin because Edwin's the head honcho for all the crime that's been going on. Edwin has been in bed with the government, part of the Superman project. Now that's the cool thing right there. This is the part I'm loving. He was part of the Superman project to create superhumans so that way they have an army. Well, now that Edwin is gone, pretty much there's no one to stop the government from coming in there to pretty much take over, wipe out, do whatever they want to do. And that's when the heroes of Dakota, so Static, the Crime Syndicate, Hardware, Crime Syndicate, Hardware, all of them, they say, okay, what's going to happen now? So pretty much the Big Bang was not an accident, and Hardware, of course, said no, but we got to get ready for war because now they're going to come in. And that's when we switch over to Lex Luthor when he was president, Amanda Waller, Sam Lane. They're saying this is an Omega level threat. Edwin has been extinguished. We need to get in there and we need to go ahead and we need to do what we got to do. So they send in the Suicide Squad. They originally thought about sending in Superman, but they said no, that's not the right call because they don't want nobody to know about what's going on and what was really happening behind the scenes. So they send in the Suicide Squad. They send Bronze Tiger, Boomerang, Deadshot, and a couple of soldiers to go in there to try and wipe this place out. So as they're doing it, they meet up with the Blood Syndicate. Now, the Blood Syndicate, I remember when I was reading Milestones, when they were in their own separate universe, I kind of like it that Dharma kind of insinuated that they were supposed to represent their army. They're supposed to represent the numbers that they would need to fight a war. So I kind of like that they were the first people that they come across. So then they get into a giant fight and they're going back and forth. Then Static comes in. Deadshot comes in. It's just a free-for-all. During this whole battle, we see that the citizens of Dakota are also getting involved into this fight. So Rocket, she's trying to shield them. Icon's there, apparently they got tanks that they brought into this thing. Icon's in there and he's just stripping the tanks away. So to handle this situation, they go ahead and they bring in Captain Atom. Now, this is what I love about them bringing in Captain Atom. He's the perfect person to bring into this because he's with the government, usually. On top of being with the government, on top of being with the government, he's also the perfect powerhouse to fight Icon, to keep him distracted. And during the whole thing, I love that they brought this history in there. Is Icon always talking about how he's from the 1800s. He's been alive since the 1800s. And how much I've seen many men like you who are just blindly following orders. And there are times where you can't do that. So they're going back and forth. Bronze Tiger is fighting Hardware, which honestly I feel like cool, but Hardware should be wiping the floor clean with him. But we also see with Bronze Tiger, he's always been hesitant when it comes to Amanda Waller, but he's also part of the Suicide Squad. So he's got a chip implanted in his head that will destroy him if he doesn't follow orders. But he's already not feeling this whole plan. And he's seeing that pretty much he doesn't like the idea of going into a neighborhood. I'm just going to be blank with you. You could tell that he doesn't like the idea of going to a neighborhood where it's blacks. It's his own people. And they're doing well. They're strong. They got their own city. Well, not their own city. They're doing strong. They got their own heroes. He sees himself. He knows where he comes from, because he's from this type of environment, and he loves, and you can tell he's against it. He's against the government coming in and destroying a black neighborhood. And you guys might hate that, but it's done very tactfully, very respectfully, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's like if you were in another country and out of nowhere you in this country were in the same territory or a part of the same group, and then they tell you you gotta go in there and destroy it, and you're like, no, I'm from this type of place. Like, I don't want to destroy this. Anyway, but you can see at some point he says, bump it, I'm not doing this anymore. So he goes against Amanda Waller, and that's when things start going crazier. It gets to the point where Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman have now stepped in to quell the fighting and pretty much say, like, hey, look, that's enough of that. Honestly, the Justice League is more on the Milestone superhero side than they are with the Lexus government side. So while all that's happening, we find out that they were able to come early because they said they had a man inside. Luthor eventually comes and he steps down, and they start having a meeting. They start having a meeting about what's the next steps to do with this, because if we keep going, Dakota is going to be destroyed in the aftermath of this whole battle. It just is, because it's big parties fighting. So with that in mind, Icon is trying to quail the side that wants to keep fighting on his end. So like Rocket and them, and Icon's like, hey, look, let's try to settle this. And Rocket's not liking that idea because she's thinking Icon's turning tail and running or bending over. And I've said this before, she's a very strong person. She's a very strong personality. She's a bit of a hothead, if you ask me. But at this point, you have to do it, because otherwise, Icon, honestly, I'm on Icon's side. It's like, you don't know of how much this is going to level the whole playing field. So it goes, Icon and Hardware are now in negotiations with Lex Luthor. And pretty much they give him the spiel of, you have to lay down your arms. Luthor's side tells the Dakota side, you have to lay down your arms. And pretty much you have to completely give everything up to us, otherwise we will level this whole place. Icon's frustrated with it, and he sits there, and you could tell that he says, I've dealt with your kind for many years where you want to just put us down, and you know what? If I really wanted to, I could end you right now. Like right here, right now, I could put an end to you. And I won't have no regrets. And that's when Luthor is like, now, you could do that, but here's the thing. There's a big blue Boy Scout that's down the hall from here. Probably won't let you do it. But if you do that, well, what's going to happen to Virgil's parents? What's going to happen to Rocket's family? You don't want that now, do you? And so that's when Hardware and Icon kind of have this discussion. I don't think the Blood Syndicate was involved in this, just because they're former gangbangers, so they might not have put them in there. But either way, Hardware's saying like, yo, we should just go ahead and take them out. We could fight them. We could keep going. Like, of course the league will be on our behinds, but we can handle ourselves. The downside to this, though, is Icon brought it up perfectly. He says, we can keep fighting. You and me, we're good. My concern is Rocket. My concern is Static. My concern is all of Dakota, because while we fight, the place will be leveled, or even if we were on the run, they have something in their back pockets that are going to always have on us. So we'll have to find another way to fight. And so you see Static talking with, in the other room, you see Static talking with Rocky about how this isn't right. They just come into our neighborhood, destroy what we built up, and they're doing whatever they want. And then we see Jefferson Pierce come in. Again, this is all actual DC lore about how he worked for Luther and he was on the educational side. And Jefferson's like, look, I get where you guys are coming from. I thought I could make a difference, but apparently I'm not. And they're pretty much laying into him. It's like, yo, you a sellout, man. Like, we thought you were cool. I looked at you, Static saying, I looked at you as a mentor. And so Jefferson's like, look, I get it. You know what? Pretty much in the inside, he's like, do what y'all got to do. Because you know what? I get it. From a father's standpoint, I understand. But as a black man, I understand even more. Do what you got to do. So they did a couple of things to kind of destroy a few things here and there. But you could see in the long run, it wasn't much. Because when it came back, the deal was they can't be superheroes. They have to kind of let the government do its own thing. But at the same time, though, it's just literally, it's a deal, unfortunately, they had to swallow. Because when Static was thinking about doing something, I think he was going to take Luther out or do some type of way of resistance. Luther said, I'm going to build up a shelter so that way we always have eyes on you. And isn't your family's center just down the street from there? And that's when Static realized, crap, he's got us. So he had to stand down. And it was a hard pill to swallow. And Luther then left, and that's when Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, they kind of said, we're not going to be involved with what the government's doing. We got your backs if you need us. So they said, look, we'll keep an eye on Luther and see what happens from here. When that happens, we then see that it fast forwards to where Rochelle's son from the Milestone universe has now come into here, and Static, he's out with his friends. It looks like he's supposed to be the same age as Dick Grayson, at least that's what I heard. I didn't know how I felt about that, because I always picture Static with Tim Drake. I pictured him with that class, not with the Dick Grayson class. But it is what it is. I'm not going to fight it. I'm okay with Static being aged up. But we kind of see it looks like he's kind of like in college. And he's saying like, hey. So anyway, we get back to the scene. Rochelle's son, he kind of gets dispersed into the area. Static goes to see what's going on. And that's when he kind of gives like a flicker of telling Static like, hey, look, you need to pick up your arms again. Like, everybody else is out there, they're doing their thing, but you curled up and you did nothing. You gotta be Static again. The world needs you. And that's when we shift over to him going back, and he's trying to say he's right. He realizes who he is, which is Rochelle's son, which we see earlier that they have a tight enough relationship where he calls him Uncle Virgil. So Static picks up the moniker, and the comic ends. I'm all over the place a little bit, but overall, like I said, this was a good read. I would have to give it a fire watch. I loved in it that they did a good job with placing it in a time where Luther was president. Jefferson Pierce is put to the sideline because there's not much he can do. Bronze Tiger was put into it to kind of show that as a black man, or even as a person who's on the military side, that you can't always follow those orders that you want to follow because it might not be the best. Although it's also hard for him not to follow orders because he does have like something in the back of his neck that will destroy him if he doesn't follow the orders. But we do see that in the comic that he does say, Bumpy, you can do what you want. I don't care anymore. And they were going to take him out. I kind of do like that tidbit. I like that Jefferson said he's at least trying to make some type of a difference. And it does make a point of you can't always fight from the outside. Sometimes you have to fight from the inside to do the best that you can. And then when you can't fight anymore on the inside, then that's when you go ahead and you fight on the outside. But you see that he at least was trying a different path. I love that Hardware and Icon were both willing and ready to take out Luther and be fugitives, but they do not want to do that because they have loved ones and people they cherish. They can't keep up that fight. They have, let's be honest, Hardware, yeah, he has an ex-fiance. She's technically out of this, if he still has an ex-fiance in this universe. Icon, he's been around for centuries, so he could be on the run. He doesn't mind that. But Virgil, family. Raquel, family. Nothing you can do about that. And I love that each one understood the gravity of what's really happening here. This isn't just a normal villain of the week. This is a government officials that you have nothing on. And there's only so much that you can do. I laughed when Hardware sat there and said, you think we could rely on the League when they just now decide to step into Dakota after a whole World War III just let loose in our neighborhood? I ain't holding my breath to them. I kind of want to see how that goes because, honestly, Dakota could be like Gotham, where he says that, but let's be honest here. If it's that type of situation, why would the League step in? Because we've seen with superheroes is the moment another superhero steps into another superhero's territory, you would think that would be hey man, look, I'm here to help out, blah, 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 blah. But no, some superheroes, they get territorial. They're like, look, this is how I do things around here. This is how the city works, blah, 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 blah. And we can go from there. Even if you step into Gotham and Batman finds out you step into Gotham, the first thing he's going to come over and say, like, why are you here? You should not be here. Like, you don't run into here unless I say you run into here. So that was a good thing. Overall, like I said, it was a good run. I hope they pick it up. I hope they reach the numbers they need to reach because there's so much more you can do with this. This was a true situation where people always talk about how you want more realistic situations. You want more human-like interactions. This is more of a human interaction comics that you would hope for. And if they do go forward with this, I would love it if they kind of treat the Dakotaverse or pretty much Dakota State as they're their own thing, and if you go in there, you're in for it because this is their place. You don't just operate however you want to operate. On that note, one thing I can say, I love that Edwin. They always find a way to make. I know Edwin Alva's a big bad, but I love that they made Edwin Alva the linchpin in all of this. The moment that he is gone, everything just explodes into this big old giant chaos. And I love the fact that nobody made a move because Alva was skillful enough to pretty much have where, I'll put it like this. Alva was skillful enough to have Luthor have just enough of an interest to leave him alone, but not enough. Okay. I love that Alva had just enough of an interest or just enough a stake in everything or power-wise to keep the bigger powers at bay. But at bay to where, here's what you want, but you got to stay out of my stuff. And they say, all right, fine, we ain't going to touch your stuff. And they knew not to cross him because they knew that he's got enough dirt on them that I believe that they would not come out unscathed. And that was a war that it just wasn't worth it. I do like they added that. I do like that Alva was shown to be not a major player, but important enough to where he kept the big boys at bay. I do like that little tidbit because now it wasn't that they were outpowered or outmanned or outforced. It's just the fact of they were out, I want to say maneuvered, because at the end of the day, they have loved ones and there's only so much that you could do. And I respect the fact that Milestone was able to hold their own for so long. Because think about it, you had Captain Atom, you had a Suicide Squad, which again, I don't think Bronze Tiger should be able to go one-to-one with Hardware. I think Hardware should have wiped them clean. I love Bronze Tiger, but at the same time, that's just me. But overall, it was a good issue. I recommend please go out and get it. Show your support. If they could deliver stories like this, honestly, I think Milestone would be good. But if they can't, well, at least it was a good attempt. But overall, side note, I love that they were doing that. They were saying that there are other ways for us to help out Dakota without being heroes. So then you probably see them getting more involved in the community. But Static, he probably did just feel defeated when he noticed that, dog, yeah, it's just nothing I can do about that. So we'll see. Overall, guys, again, go watch it. I mean, go read it. I recommend it and enjoy. Please tell me what y'all comments. Please, I would love to discuss more about this. If I got some stuff wrong, let me know. Again, this is the discussion itself. And please just go ahead and let's make it the conversation in the comments. Have a good day. Peace. Oh, it's a fire watch, by the way. You can tell I'm just too excited about this. Peace.